This MPC2500 is plugged straight into the microphone input on my camera, so there will be some distortion in the audio, in parts. Let's look into the hard drive to find some drum samples. Press Mode button, then press Pad 2, Load. Use the scroll wheel and cursor buttons. You can see the different files on the screen as you scroll. Use the window button to select. Use the cursor buttons also to select. Press F3 to play to hear selected sample. If it's a sample you want to use, press F5 to load and select Pad with scroll wheel, then press F5 to keep. Now let's look for another drum sample, repeating the process. Now let's look for a hat sample, repeating the process. Put it onto a pad as before and keep. Using the cursor button to select a crash symbol. As before, put the sample onto a pad and press F5 to keep. Press Main button to return to the main window. Check the pads for the samples we selected to use. Press Mode button, press Pad 7, Program. We can see the samples in each bank. Each pad can have 4 samples on it. Press Mode button and then Pad 15, Grid Edit, to see the grid on the screen. Now we can use the grid editor on the screen to use the samples to program a drum pattern. See which buttons I use and how I use the grid to input the samples to make a drum pattern. Use the scroll wheel and pad to input the sample into the grid. I will create a simple rock beat drum pattern starting with the bass drum. There is another video by someone else who shows a quicker way of doing this. Search for it, it's very good. Press Main for main window. Let's slow it down. Press Mode button, then pad 15, Grid Edit to go back to the grid window, Editor. Now we will put the drum sample into the grid. Always remember to use the scroll wheel to go back to the start of the grid. Now I will put the hat sample into the grid. So far so good. A simple beat. Now for a crash. So the drum pattern is created, but I want to change the closed hats to open hats, just to try. Press Mode button and pad 3, and use the cursor buttons to navigate around the window. Press F1 for load. Press Window button and use cursor button to find a sample. Press F3 to play the sample. Press the cursor button up or down to find a sample, and then press F5 to load if it is the sample you want. Use the scroll wheel or press the pad to select a pad you want to send the sample to. Then press F5 to keep. Press Main button for main window. Press play to hear the drum pattern with open hats. That sounds fine. To adjust levels, you can press Mode button, then press Pad 8, Mixer, to go into the Mixer window. Then press Pads to select samples, and use Scroll Wheel to adjust the volume levels of each sample pad. We will look again at the mixer later. Then press Main button to go back to the main window. Record a guitar to make a sample. My guitar effects are plugged straight into the MPC. Press Mode button and then Pad 5 to enter the record window and adjust your input volume. My guitar volume is already set to a good level, but you can use Input to adjust the level. You can also adjust the threshold level to a level where recording will start automatically after pressing F6 to record. Also on the screen you can see to adjust the amount of seconds recording time, make sure you have a correct amount of time. Press play to play your drums and practice if needed. Then press F6 to record the guitar sample. Press F6 again to stop recording. Press F4 to play what you recorded, to check it. You can press F2 to try again, to record it again if needed. You then use the scroll wheel, or press a pad to send the sample to a pad, then press F5 to keep. Check if the sample needs trimming on the start and end. After returning to the main window, press Mode button, then F6 to see the sample. Press a pad to hear it. The threshold level worked well, so the start does not need to be trimmed. Use the scroll wheel and cursor to trim a little off the end. Use the Shift button with the cursor buttons to navigate across the numbers on the screen if needed. Press F6 to edit, then press F5 to do it, to discard the part you want to trim off. I already put the guitar sample into the grid editor at the start of the grid for this to play in the loop. With the loop function turned on, you can press play start to check if the guitar sample fits the drum pattern. Making a sample of a bass guitar. Just to mention, I recorded the guitar sample again. How to set up using the record window. Press Mode button, then Pad 5 record. Now we can see the window to set record level. Use the scroll wheel and cursor buttons to adjust and move across the sections of the window. In the input section we want analog. As you can see, we want stereo. The outputs on my multi-effects are stereo. Set the input threshold here. And do not forget to set enough seconds here for the length of the sample you want to record. Setting the threshold. Use input level to adjust level. I have my bass on a stand next to me, going through multi-effects into the stereo record inputs on the MPC. I am just plucking a string to get a level. Now when we press record F6 here, if the threshold is set correctly, as soon as the MPC hears a sound, recording will start. Press F6 to stop recording. We can press F2 to try again, or F4 to play, or F5 to keep. Just for this demonstration we will keep. So we have a sample recorded, so let's trim it. To trim the sample, press Mode button, then Pad 6. We can see the sample on the screen and hear it by pressing a pad. Use the cursor buttons to move across the screen and scroll wheel to adjust each section. We can see the parts of the sample we want to trim. Use the Shift button to move across like this, with the cursor buttons and scroll wheel to adjust. So we have adjusted the end of the sample. Now we will adjust the start of the sample. Press a pad to hear the sample. This will be OK for this purpose. Press F6 Edit, and we can discard the parts we want trimmed. So to complete the trim, press F5, do it. Now we can see our trimmed sample on the screen. Let's check where our samples are. Press Mode button and Pad 7 Program. We can put up to 4 samples on each pad. We can see which samples are on which pads. The full level button is to have the level for the samples on highest when tapping the pads, instead of the pads being touch sensitive. So this sample is just for this demonstration. So this is how to delete a sample we do not want anymore. Press Mode button, then Pad 6, Trim, to see the sample. Then press Window button. We can see here F2 button to delete. Now we can see our choice of what we want to do. Press F5 to delete. Now we can see the sample has gone deleted. So just as I recorded a guitar sample earlier, I recorded a bass guitar and 2 other guitars. This is how it turned out. You can see I named it Punk A. It is set to loop on 4 bars. Here is where the samples are on which pads. So if we press Mode button and Pad 7 Program, we can see where the samples are. Let's have a look at the grid window to see where the samples are. Press Mode button, then press Pad 15. Use the scroll wheel to go to the start of the grid. We can see in the grid where we have placed our samples. Using the cursor buttons, we can move up and down the grid to see each sample where it has been placed. Let's have a look at the mixer window. Press Mode button, then press Pad 8 Mixer. Now we can see on the window our levels for each sample. It does have a whole selection of effects in the mixer, but the effects on my guitar are from my guitar effects, not this mixer. Saving your work. Press Mode button, then press Pad 3, Save. Now we have to look carefully where we scroll to save correctly, or we can lose our work. To be safe, I want to save entire memory to memory card. Press Do It. See here, you can change the project name. Turn the scroll wheel to alter project name. I use the cursor buttons to move across, and I just change the number at the end. Then press F5, Enter, and F5, Do It. You can see it saving everything, so make sure you see this. Now your work is saved. Loading your work. Switch on the MPC from the on-off button. Before I do anything else, I delete any samples still on its internal memory. To delete samples, press the Window button, then you can navigate your way around the window. Then press F5, Do It. I also prefer to have the full level turned on. It's just how I prefer it. Here I found a sample I want deleted, so I press Window and I can see F2 to delete on the window. You can see I have a choice to delete all with the F3 button or just one sample. I press F3, All, then press Do It. Now to load our work, press Mode button, and pad 2, we can navigate across the window with the cursor buttons and look for the project we want. I am looking for Project 7 on the memory card. Press F5, Do It. We can see it loading. It is loaded. I hope you found this video of some use, but please let me know if this is the worst tuition video you have ever seen.